Okay, we're here with Avela today and ShowMeKC Schools to talk about maximizing enrollment using the Common App. We're going to talk about research, best practices, and some trends and insights that we've seen over the past few years in Kansas State. So just a brief agenda. We're going to go over who's here today, what is a Common App. Most of you already know this, but we'll cover it anyway. Why use a Common App, how to design the Common App to best suit the needs of your school or your school group that you're working with, and then we'll have some Q&A. So here today, I feel silly introducing myself because you all already know, Vanessa Coleman, ShowMeKC Schools Executive Director. I'd also like to point out that Shavette's in the room, who is your School App KC Manager.
Hi, I'm Tabby Wong. I'm the product lead at Avela.
Do you also want to go?
Sure, I'm Mike. I'm the marketing lead at Avela.
So I'm going to do a quick 30 seconds of Avela. So our vision is to ensure that every child has access to a great education. We're co-founded by two professors out of MIT. Some of the research you'll see in some of these slides today, and Greg Bybee, who is our CEO. And we really want to build that platform for families to navigate their entire child's education journey and to find those opportunities and kind of give parents a very easy experience. So, yep. And then, we have a suite of tools in the, exploration and enrollment and admissions process. So we have a Avela Explorer, which is our map-based visualization tool. We have Apply, which is the application tool. We have Match, which is our lottery tool. And we have Enroll, which is registration and everything downstream to that. And of course, we have a world-class group of customer support, training, people who've been in our shoes in districts or charter schools doing enrollment.
So I just want to name that too. As you all lean into Avela, in addition to Shavette and I, everyone that works at Avela once worked in a system using a Common App. So they do know this stuff. Yeah.
So we do work with a lot of charter schools, a lot of other charter Common Apps around the country, and then work with a good number of school districts as well.
All right, so who's here today? Actually, I think it would be fun to kind of go around the room, even though I kind of know. Raise your hand if you're with School App KC. Boop, boop.
Oh, I thought you meant
Nope, you are. Oh, raise your hand. At least for now, Trisha. No, I'm just kidding. Anybody? No, nobody's in the room from School App STL, but we do have an independent enrollment who's considering School App STL. Would you like to raise your hand and tell where you're from?
Yeah, I am new executive director at the Leadership School, which is the first charter school that is opened outside of the city limits of St. Louis. And we would love to be in this app because we're a stone's throw from your city, and parents don't know the difference of if I live in this school zone, I could go to this charter, or this school zone, I can go to this charter. So a lot of North County parents will still go to apply to the city charter schools and then won't be able to and don't even know that we exist. So
excellent. Well, thanks for being here.
thank you.
So we'll go ahead and jump into some slides talking about just a Common App overview. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we do in Kansas City, what we do in St. Louis, and then also what the possibilities are for the future. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Common Applications are one type of enrollment reform. We actually attended a dinner last night, and Denver Public Schools was present. They were asked, when they did school reform, what was the number one thing that they said that they can impart upon us all moving forward that helped them be successful? And their answer was common application and common enrollment. So I thought that was a really powerful minute there. So common applications are one type of enrollment reform, moving from individual schools and entities managing their own enrollment platforms and processes toward unification. So in Kansas City, as you know, before the Common App, there were 27 options for free public education in kindergarten and 27 ways to apply. We heard the same thing from Denver, that there were 69 options for free kindergarten and 69 ways to apply. And the same exists in St. Louis right now. It's roughly the same landscape as Kansas City, about 16 LEAs with about 27 operators, school buildings that you can apply to. So process is very confusing for families, just trying to streamline that. So the first half of this will really be talking about what we're doing for families, and the second half we'll be talking about how this impacts schools. So again, establishment of common app enrollment systems with similar timelines is often aimed at making those enrollment processes better for families, and then also additionally school operators. But families, how it helps them is it gives them more equitable access to that choice. It gives them quick information, and it gives them the easy steps to apply. For schools, it provides a clearer picture of your enrollment, especially when we're using a single accept model. And then we're not doing ranking in Kansas City, but we are in St. Louis, so we can talk about the benefits of that. And then policy making, it provides better data, because as we just said, Colin's here from SLU, who's going to be putting together some data in St. Louis, but data is king. When we can use data to make decisions, those are the best decisions. So benefits of a common app. This, we talked briefly about MIT. I heard some people talking about MIT, but we are a part of a cohort. Chevette is an MIT School Access and Quality Fellow this year. Yay, Chevette. But our organization has long time been involved with MIT, so this is a slide directly from them, kind of outlining trends over the past 5 years. As you can see, enrollment in district is actually down by about 3.5% over those past 5 years. Private schools have actually flatlined, whereas homeschooling up so huge, 33%, and charter schooling up 9%. And again, that's over the past 9 years. I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. Please, interrupt away, please.
So you're getting the change on the left. I was trying to find the change on the right, but the right's not telling me.
The right's just kind of telling you the total percentage of enrolled in the nation in those districts. And so the changes are kind of over here on the left over the past 5 years. And again, slide borrowed from giving credit to MIT. But a common application can help you compete in that landscape. In Kansas City, this is directly from our School App KC comparison charts. You can see that over the past 5 years of our application, 6 actually with this current year, we've seen nothing but growth. And that isn't just because there's new schools in the app, that's actually new users in the app. So KC is about on November 9th with the City School Fair to launch her 7th year of the Common App. We've seen consistent growth in schools operating, moving from 16 to 23. We've been able to incorporate that pre-K space, so Della Lamb, Operation Breakthrough, Early Start, and Emmanuel all bringing their applications in. And that is also helping you all build that platform for base to move on to your schools in the upper grades. And we've been able to flag when things have happened, like declines associated with COVID pandemic, and then also help to speak to families about your school reopening plans and getting back into apply to schools. We've been better able to help with school closures. This has actually been really fascinating, especially like when Pathway or KCNA were in the app. We could actually directly communicate with those families instead of waiting from a roster from the district to help them get resettled at their new school home. So that really has sped up the process for families coming from school closures, which were already difficult. And then we've been able to predict population declines in pre-K and K. I raised red flags for you all at the beginning of this enrollment season. It has leveled out through August, but we're going to continue to look at that as it comes down the pike over the next few years. And then we've been able to flag growth in the 9 through 12 sector. I've been asked where that growth is coming from, not sure yet, if it's people staying in Kansas City or people pulling kids from private schools, but it's actually about a 17% increase, and it covers both sectors. So amazingly, it's charter and district, not one pulling from the other.
In 9 through 12?
Yes, in 9th through 12th grades. So I did pull Academy Lafayette data and also Citizens of the World data. Another thing that we have seen that we know is possible through the use of a Common App is diversifying your school student body. And that's both socioeconomically and racially, but these slides are focused on racial diversity. So over a 10-year projection just from the fair and even lottery in the Common App, you can see that racial diversity could increase by use of Common App. It still factors, you have to factor in parent ultimate choice, but this is a 10-year projection. And we picked 2 schools that were involved in the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition because their goal is to diversify their student body. So it worked for a 10-year projection for Academy Lafayette. You can see the increases in diversity. And then also it worked. Tricia, I have a slide for your school too if you want to see it. But I hid it. I can unhide it. And Citizens of the World also. And I picked those 2 specifically because, again, they're a part of the Diverse Charter School Coalition, and that's part of their mission to diversify the student body. Will you unhide, Trisha's, or can you? It's okay.
Right now.
I'll show it to you later.
Yeah.
But it does, we have seen that trend over time, that you have more diverse student body just from use of Common App. Anybody have questions?
That's why one of the reasons we started Common App, if you remember, with the other application, what's the name again?
We had so just to name, we did have a Common App, and most of the people in the room were part of that Common App. The first year, I know you were, and I'm pretty sure you were, I know you were, I don't remember if UA was. 10 years ago, there was a Common App that was just a Common App, meaning you all aligned dates and you all aligned the platform, but there was no single accept, no ranking, no other common lottery. So there's nothing else to align you. And what we saw from that was that some schools were oversubscribed because, again, there was nothing keeping you from enrolling in multiple schools. And then on day one, those kids didn't show up, which we solved for in subsequent years. But yes, you all were studying
I'm
it.
saying that one of the reasons why then we really want to come out is diversity. Because people usually think how school is a private school. So by getting in the Common App, we wanted to make sure that minorities and low-income may speak to that. This is a good choice to me.
Yep.
How much MCPSA has this cut down on the students that enroll in a school but then don't show up?
I have a slide for that. So in our first year, it was a 33% reduction in first day no-shows. And we can talk about the mechanism by which that happens. It's called the single accept, but we'll get into the slides on that. If at the end there's still questions, I'll happily popcorn back to that. Okay. So lessons learned and recommendations from our short time doing the Common App. In order to launch a Common App, this would be good if there were Boone County folks, but they're not. So it requires goodwill and strong advocacy. I would definitely say I'm preaching to the choir for the folks in this room, because you all are willing to kind of put your specific needs for your schools aside to join that Common App, knowing that it was altruistically the right thing to do. So thank you for that. It requires collaboration and a centralized governing body or ownership, local champion, however you want to word that. In this case, it's ShowMeKC schools for both Kansas City and for St. Louis. Boone County remains to be seen, but somebody has to spearhead it and somebody has to fund it. And then it requires a focus on families, which is something that is a little bit different than we have done as school leaders before, pulling back what we want and what we need for our staff and thinking about what families need, and then as a secondary thought, coming in and saying, but also how does it help us?
Thank you for being a tip. All right, we're going to go through 3 tactics now that help ease both families in and that will create more efficiency for you all. So we're going to go through application, lottery, and then post-lottery worlds in that order. So let's start with the application and how families are experiencing it. So in general, when we think about the application side of things, we want to make this as open and as easy for families as possible to apply. So simplicity is really key, and I'll show you some data on what simplicity means. And then from a platform perspective, right, we're always thinking about easy ways for families to get in. More than 80% of our families are using things on mobile, so we're optimized for mobile first. That's really important. You know, they should be able to go through their entire application on mobile.
82% in Kansas City.
Great. And then, you know, multilingual to support, you know, all of your families and the languages that are in our communities. Auto saving is really important so that you don't lose data across, you know, as if they forget to save. And then, you know, safe and secure is also something I think we as Avela and me personally, when we think about building an application, right, privacy, security comes first. Any questions? Okay, let's take a look at what we've observed from the parent behavior side. So I already mentioned 75 to 80% of our users are mobile users. But what's interesting about this is that families are twice as likely to submit the application on desktop. So at some point, what we're observing is they're moving to desktop to complete the application. But of course, that movement makes it harder in some ways, right? So it's an interesting observation. We're going to continue to monitor that. We observe the most drop-off after the school selection part. So what that means is they get through the phases of onboarding, creating their student profile, starting the application, selecting the schools.
But typically what we see is there's kind of a long set of questions after the school selection part, and that's where they're dropping off. And then file uploads, especially are stalling parents. Even if the file uploads are not required, we see them stall out at that point.
Are you taking questions, ma'am?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So when the parents drop off after they select their school, they don't finish the application, it says in progress. How long averagely is that in progress status in there?
That's a great question. I don't know that, but I will take that down. That's a good thing for us to study, and I think we can get that. Yeah.
I will say at this time, too, that I just checked with Avela before coming for the St. Louis launch. So we launched on Monday, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days. In 4 days, we have an 83% completion rate. So that means that 83% of people they're fully submitted and not in progress, which is actually really high because you'll see in a later slide, it's around 60% for the whole nation. But that just means that it's a simple, easy app. And by the way, Kansas City folks, it's the same app. So it should be roughly the same results.
It's a really great question.
Is there a duration that it can be in progress for the parent before it gives them an alert and say, hey, finish your application?
That's a really good idea. What happens right now is you can bulk select folks who are in progress and then send them a message, right? So that's, we don't have like that type of scheduling type of communications, but it's something that's on our radar. Like, I think that those nudges are really powerful.
And then another question that I asked Shabbat that I think is pertinent to everyone's conversation, you can include in the lottery somebody who's in progress. If they're not finished, but you still want to include them in the lottery, you can actually still include them. And that way you can still make them an offer and you can still say contingent upon finishing the last couple pieces. So you can, even though they're not fully finished, you can still include them in your lottery.
So I wanted to understand this, most likely to drop off after school selection. Are you saying school selection before the lottery? So just simply saying these are the schools I'm interested in?
Yep.
Send my students.
Yeah, so it's just during the application part of it. I'm not talking about lottery or co-star.
Okay, yeah. And so because we don't have that little file influence pre-lottery, do we?
So this is really for like the full country.
Okay.
So that's what we're observing.
Okay.
So our system's actually working a little better.
Right, Jetty, right. Yeah, because our pre-lottery is very few steps.
Yeah.
Okay. It is. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay. So these are 3 applications that we've observed kind of the average time for completion. So the first 2 have about the same number of questions. And these are surface level questions. There's a whole set of things we can talk about for conditional logic. And so you can see the average completion time is in that roughly 10 minute mark. The last detail right here is the first pass completion rate. So this doesn't mean they're not coming back to finish, right? Folks absolutely are coming back to finish the application, but to go through all the way in one shot is much higher without the file uploads. And then you can see on application 3, right, more questions takes, of course, more time. And of course, we all know that when things take more time, parents can drop off at any step along the way.
So that third column, think how the district's app is currently. And yes, I said it. But like the district's app currently has over 50 questions and currently requires all of the uploads up front. When you do that, you are limiting who is actually finishing the app, at least on the first round, if not long term. Your application has about 8 questions. There are a couple of schools that have conditional questions. So if we included those, maybe 15 tops, and only one school upload.
So are these profiles of real applications that exist out there? Okay.
And I'm not going to share who they are.
Sorry.
We're going to move on and talk about lottery and the different types of things you can do on the lottery side.
Okay, I'm sorry. My eyes are messing with me. I'm sure you can figure that out, but I can't see, so I'm going to move closer. So one really exciting thing about Kansas City that we realized in the first year, but I keep track of every single year, is that this past year, so current school year, last application season, within 48 hours of making offers, 83% of people who were made an offer accepted a seat and began some form of enrollment. So what that means is that your timelines are sooner than they have been in the past. You are not waiting for the bulk of your offers to be made over the summer. You can hire staff, you can plan transportation, you can hire support staff, you can plan your classroom schedules based off of something that you now know sooner in March and in April instead of in July and August. The other thing that, Trisha, you actually made the point in the other session about like social justice equity. And part of this we have noticed over time is when you have a steady deadline always, and it's a steady drip. So if I just moved into Kansas City or if I'm transplanted for some reason, I can lean to my neighbor and say, when's the deadline? And everyone knows because after 7 years, we've been using that same deadline. That actually is a social justice component to say this is always when it is, and then know that you can always still apply. But giving people a deadline and being really clear about it and being consistent about it is helpful to the process, especially if I'm a family who has a lot of balls in the air, and a lot of things happening. If I know that this is the deadline, I can meet it. It's when I don't know when the deadlines are that it's all over the place.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I also have a question about this. Do you know, so you know 83% of those accepted an offer. Do you know what percentage of those kids actually end up going to this?
I will find that out. And I think it's different from school to school, but I can pull your data. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. We have asked you guys for a while now to track first day no-shows, and it's all over the place. And I get that it's difficult because you have that 10-day waiting period before you can consider them like a dropped kid. And so I know it's hard to track. We were able to track the first year. We have not been able to track from you guys consistently post that. What is the first day no challenge to get information? Again, that 10-day window, because you might think somebody didn't show up on day one, but they showed up within 3 days, or they showed up within 10 days, or I don't know outside of that, like what the hang up is, but asking the schools for data on who didn't show up that you thought would show up has been unsuccessful for us. But I can tell some things from the app just because you've gone and made a new offer in that same time frame, so I can do some data. It's not 100%. It's a little bit of deduction on my part, but I can do that.
I'm going to talk about the Newark Common App case and some of the things that they've done with their lottery and priorities, and kind of how they were able to increase their enrollment numbers. So this is from Newark Common App data over the course of 1 year. So before 2023-24 and then into 23-24 school year. So we were able to help them grow their overall enrollment by 3% in 1 year, which is very cool. And then they have, in their laws, they can ask about IEP's free lunch, which I know is not something that you all can do here, but they had built those into their priorities and preferences. And so that then got reflected in these lottery results where the number of students who were receiving free lunch or have IEPs were increased by both the Common App and the lottery. And then this is just a case study of how they built their lottery preference. So they did sibling, unhoused students, and then they had that third priority included IEP, multilingual, free lunch, and they did it to the demographics of their citywide average. So the other thing that Newark Common App did as well is they ran what we call a single best offer lottery instead of a multi-offer lottery. And so I think the one thing I want to highlight here is it yields into fewer waitlisted only students, which is really great. So more students are getting offers, and there's more kind of systemic efficiency if you decide to choose to do a single best offer type of lottery.
So single best offer is like a Common App or unified enrollment is a continuum. And there is probably 50 Common Apps across the country. All of them are slightly different. This is sort of like the end game, like the highest possible solution, if you will. So you all don't do single best offer, you do single it's.
So it's a different algorithm, or it's a similar but slightly different algorithm, and it for them yielded really great results. I'm going to skip onto the next section from a time perspective. So there's a series of post-lottery kind of policies that you can decide on. So single accept is one of them, and then that's what we've talked a lot about here. It works very well. And then ranking is another one. So yeah, here's the data you can talk about.
So yeah, we've been talking about this already. So this is reiterating what we've already said. Single accept did the first year between 2018 and 2019 reduce no-shows at your schools. This is when we were able to track by 37%. Only about 56% of you reported the data, by the way, because other schools hadn't kept track. But it did see that first year, that reduction in no-shows. And we've continued to see about that same steady rate for the schools that would report. What we also saw, and this could be good, it could be bad, is that more schools had a wait list, meaning that you had more applicants than you ever had before between 2019 and 2018. In 2018, only 55% of you reported that you had wait lists, while in 2019, 82% of you reported that you had a wait list in one or more grades. And so...
And I'm clear now, in 2024, it's everybody has a wait list.
In one or more grades, yes.
I have a question about the wait list, and I know it's something that we've talked about off and on for a while, but is there a way to clean up wait lists? Because I can see about 150 pre-Ks on the wait list, but are they also on Trisha's wait list? Mm-hmm. And like, how do we see? I know, right? How do we know, like, there's not 300?
I'm going to dance for a second, because there totally is, and we kept telling you guys about it. It's called ranking. Ranking will clean up your wait list.
Yes. Okay.
So we're going to talk about how that works.
All right. So we have this is going to be an example of how ranking will help reduce wait lists. So here I have the application of one student and their set of schools. So here they have 5, and it's not ranked right now. So you can see at the when they receive their lottery results, they're waitlisted at those first 2 schools on the list. I know it's not ranking, but we're going to move this to ranking, which is why this is not ranking what it looks like. And then those 2 middle schools, or what's 3rd and 4th on the list, they get an offer at. And then the 5th school on the list, they're also listed at, right? So this is what it looks like.
In the current system, this is what it looks like. But if you rank, this is what it looks like.
So if you rank, we'll know their preference. And so what that means is that school on that 5th, like assuming this is ordered, the school on the 5th, they will never, accept that wait list over what they already have offered, right? And so what we will do is we can mark that as, not considered. It's not on your, Quincy Elementary's wait list. And so you can move on and spend time on the students that are on your wait list that have showed the preference, that are interested. Now, if a lot of students are waitlisting, 1 and 2 on that list, they should stay on that wait list, right? Because it does mean that if they were to get an offer from either of those schools over Hurley, they will likely move to that. So they should absolutely stay on those wait lists. It's those that are ranked below that it makes sense to move them off of that wait list. It'll shorten your wait list, but it should be a more accurate wait list.
So you will go 10 to 20 kids into it before getting one acceptance, because the people who are still on the list definitely wanted your school more than the one they got award.
And then another variation of this is we were just talking about single best offer. So if we were to do single best offer, this is what it would look like. They would get that one offer, the best offer, the single best offer that they can get, and then therefore all the schools kind of below that single best offer would not be considered. So again, more efficiency in the system. That's not to say that, the parents would never change their minds. People's minds change. They can call, they can get things relisted. But it creates a much more efficient system overall and a more accurate set of waitlists and offers for you to consider.
So that when you go into that wait list, you know that those people are actually interested still, based off of the ranking. And again, we're not pushing you guys to do anything. We're just giving you, I think Kathy called them the tools in your toolbox. Yeah. Just letting you know what the tools are and how we can use them if you all decide you want to use them.
Was this presented to us at Governance Council? Yes, ma'am. I know I'm confident. I missed time being this year. I was wondering.
So it actually will be an interesting test case because St. Louis is doing a ranking. Yeah. And so we will see how it works, and I can present back to you all. Yeah. If you want to talk about it before November 9th, we got to talk about it quick to make that happen. But we could certainly talk about it before.
I think the conversation at the last Governance Council was overwhelmingly they just want ranking.
it was. Yeah.
So I
And
can
again, I
bring
think-
that data back and around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some misconceptions about how it works. Again, it's not telling you, no parent is being told where they have to go to school. The choice still remains in their hand. They're just able to say which of these we want more. So again, I won't pick on Trisha this time. I'll pick on Elamon and Cynthia. If this parent has chosen 2 schools and they chose Academy Lafayette first and UA second, and they got waitlisted at Academy Lafayette, but they got into UA, they can go ahead and accept UA's offer, but they'll remain on Academy's Lafayette's waitlist because they ranked them number 1. If they had a third school that they ranked number 3, they would be removed from that waitlist. So that school would not be continuing to try to have to follow up with them.
So just to summarize the tactics, simple application, which y'all are already doing a lot of that, so continue to keep that simple. There's a bunch of levers you can use on lottery and single bus stop are different mechanisms out there, so something for you to think about or consider is we all move forward. And then of course, a few levers, single accept, which y'all already do, and then ranking something to consider to help clean up those wait lists. And then you just talked about another way to clean up wait lists or dissolve wait lists later on.
And I'll put on the radar that St. Louis actually does quotas, and none of you all do. And it has to be used as a floor, not a ceiling. So what I mean by that is we want at minimum 20% of our kindergarten class to be free or reduced from work time. That's a quota, and it's a floor, not a ceiling. You can't use it as a ceiling. You can only use it as a floor, but you can use it as a quota to, again, get more diverse applicants.